I want to thank you, Ms. Krasniqi-Goodman. Thank you for your testimony today. I appreciate you bringing a voice not just to your experience, but to the experiences of so many victims. And to Mr. Butici, I'm so sorry for the loss of your brothers, Yuli, Agran, and Mehmet. Thank you for honoring them by being here today. I'd like to continue the conversation a bit about the discussion related to the need for a special court. My area of interest is in recognizing that in 2014, Kosovo law was amended to recognize victims of conflict-related sexual violence as war victims, and this made them eligible for reparations. However, thus far, only 1,300 women have applied. I'm curious if you believe that were there to be a shift in the accountability process, the creation of this special court that you've talked about, Madam President, do you think that would change the pathway for victims of sexual violence to come forward, and would that have an impact on this catharsis process that you, Dr. Goodman, have spoken about as well?
Well, ma'am, absolutely it will shift. As I said in the very beginning, that the issue of the survivors of the sexual violence has not been the priority, neither for international community immediately after the end of the war, neither for the professional institutions of Kosovo. They have been living in the tremendous stigma from the society, and actually it's not only happening with did not only happen with the survivors of sexual violence in Kosovo, but it happens in every post-war and post-conflict societies. There is always a tendency of pointing the fingers towards the survivors rather than pointing the fingers towards the perpetrators. And it took for us about 13 years after the end of the war to be able to change the course and to be able to pass the necessary step for the survivors of the sexual violence to have the institutional care, as you referred, and as I have already filed in my statement, that by the creation, the National Council, which in a month after the work of the National Council, the legal status has been recognized towards all of the survivors of the sexual violence as the civilian victims of the war. The Committee for the Verification of the Status of the Civilian Victims of the War has started its work in February of 2018, and till now we have about over 1,000 applicants, and definitely this has reflected indirectly, and in each and every survivor that I talked to them personally before this process has started about 4 or 5 years ago. Will you be able to step forward and look and ask for your justice? And actually they have been hesitating, but now has been created a totally different momentum that each and every one of them is willing to come forward. And as I said in a very first statement, no matter what kind of the circumstances they live, no matter that they live in a very dire economical situation, the only war that is being spelled out continuously by each and every survivor, and we have heard today also by Vasfia, is that we want justice. We want the justice, and we want to see whoever has done this horrendous crime to be facing with the justice. And by putting the focus on perpetrators, we also we have seen that the stigma around the survivors has kind of like shifted in another direction that has been created a different momentum. And this is what is happening today, is going to be another momentum for the survivors of the sexual violence, for the justice that they have been lacking for about 20 years. And not to forget that we already lost so many of them. Some of them has left us. They died due to the consequences of what they have been going through. And so many times when I have been arguing with many of the lawyers, with many of the prosecutors in the country, when it was a matter of the evidence, you don't need more than evidence than themselves, the survivors of the sexual violence. And most of those cases, they were not done or they were not conducted alone. They were conducted in the presence of the family. They were conducted in the presence of the entire village. They have been conducted in the presence of the in-laws and much wider group into that. So evidences are there. Everything is ready. What we need is the proper platform and mechanism, such as a special court, to be able to proceed and move forward, to bring for the first time after 20 years the long-lasting peace in the hearts and minds and each and every survivor.